No, 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 just no.
Welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Confessional. This is Dave from Nerdbox, and I'm accompanied by my wife Jenn, also from Nerdbox. And on this episode, we are talking about Beau is Afraid. Explained. So fire up that Jiffy Pop and meet us in the booth.
This is Brian O'Halloran, and you're watching the Popcorn Confessional on the Nerdbox. Sounds like a porn site.
Now, just to quickly recap the new shorts show that we're doing, the Jiffy Pop Confessional, where we react to a film in under a minute. We got the first few wrong. Those were under 2 minutes. But the reaction that we had leaving that theater, yours was a nope. Mine was, I'd like to take a nap to it, because the sequences that played out would make for some good dreams. Now, Jenn, what was your thoughts of that film?
So I couldn't wait for it to be over. I don't know how many times I asked you what time it was. I just wanted it to be done. I was fidgety and I couldn't sit still, and I don't have ADHD, he does. And I could not sit still. It was, first of all, it was too fucking long. 3 hours. And while some movies can hold up at 3 hours, I've watched many that were just perfectly fine. The pacing was great, and I didn't feel like I was sitting there for 3 hours. This movie felt like it was longer than 3 hours. I felt like I was there for probably 5 hours. It was so long, and it was crazy. And I do get the whole concept of the movie. I understand what was going on. I get the whole mental illness. I get the paranoia, being afraid of everything. I get it. I just didn't like the movie.
Yes, so if you haven't figured out, we are going into spoiler territory.
Beau is Afraid is Ari Aster's third film following Hereditary and Midsommar, so that should tell you something. Mm-hmm. And if you get lost along the way, remember the title, Beau is Afraid. The answers to your confusion is in the title, Beau is Afraid. A film that just might be brilliantly bad.
Oh, yeah. So, Beau's fears, in our perspective, are established in the opening scene of the movie, where we, the viewer, are experiencing Beau's birth from his point of view.
So kind of like, what the hell was that movie?
Look Who's Talking. Just less funny. Later on, when we meet Beau as an adult, he is in a therapy session where the doctor is quick to prescribe him with pills because, as we know today, a lot of people out there in the field rather give you some meds instead of treating you.
Yeah, so, just medicate you and move on.
Beau then heads home to a seedy part of town where we get to see a rotting dead body right on the street. So I know it's kind of like a black horror comedy. It's like, oh, this is about to probably get really good. But then we start seeing like people dancing in the street. We learn about the naked bandit who runs around stabbing people.
And all his naked glory.
We also hear a lot of screams. We hear a lot of commotion going around his neighborhood. We don't see Beau at first, and there's a reason for that, because he comes charging out of the shadows of a dark alley to get to his house because there's a man that's been prowling outside of his home looking for him. So he has to quickly race inside and avoid this guy, and then he goes upstairs to his apartment. Now, the inside of his apartment building is run down, but on the walls there's a lot of religious sayings and anti-religious sayings. There's a lot of metaphors and stuff thrown all over the place in this movie.
It's hard to keep up with that because there's a lot of stuff that's written. You're never going to be able to, you literally would have to, pause,
yes,
every, in order to read each thing that's on the walls.
And I'm sure the hell not going to go back and try to read all of these things to interpret any of it, because it is bad. It is long.
Yes, and I'm not in for doing anything slow motion in this film with pausing or any of that. So if you want to, you have at it.
Yeah, you could drop that in the comments.
You go right ahead. We will give you all the credit because we're not doing it.
Now, everything that's going on at this point is surreal. essentially the viewers, what we're experiencing is his phobias and his mental state and how he sees and views the world around him. It's kind of like watching Alice in Wonderland, only it's Beau's in Manic Wonderland. Because we're taking a trip down his psyche where his mother has groomed him from birth on. That's kind of caused a lot of these issues because she wants to be the centerpiece in his life. Everything has to revolve around her. A little bit of that.
Munchausen by proxy. Yep. Definitely some of that going on. No, there's a whole lot of that going on.
Oh yeah, big time. Now, as we see through flashbacks, Beau attempts to break away from his mother, like when he meets Elaine on a cruise ship when they were kids, and she concocts a story which took me off guard.
Yeah.
Where she explains to a young Beau that the reason why his father died is because on the night they got married, she conceived him. So I was like, oh man, she's laying a guilt trip on him. And then she says he has a heart problem, and as soon as he ejaculates, that's it, he's done.
Yeah, they just die because they have a heart murmur. People, that's not going to kill you.
And this runs in their family.
Very rarely does a heart murmur actually lead to death. I was born with a heart murmur that eventually did clear up. I didn't die.
And she...
Spoiler!
She continues to say that, hey, yeah, your grandfather had it, his great-grandfather had it, and unfortunately, you have it. So, you can never do these things when you get older. There are other flashbacks where we get to see Beau as a child growing up, where he's defiant and he's demanding the truth about his father. Now, the film would later reveal that Beau possibly had a twin, but my gut feeling is telling me that that's not a twin. That's the moment where his personality just kind of takes two different directions.
Yeah, and there's a point where you see that, because my initial reaction was, I turned to him and I was like, well, where the fuck's his brother? I'm like, did mom kill his brother? And then, like, there's kind of like this, you know, jump where they go back again and they show, like, him talking, and this happens, and it's like, oh, okay. So this is kind of like, I think almost how he coped with the fact, with the way that his mom was.
Yes, because she locks him up in an attic when he's defiant.
Yeah.
And later in the film, when he goes up there, he sees this other self of him, or this other version of him. And essentially what it is, this is the life and part of me that I've just kind of buried away, and here I am now. And that plays out later on in the film as we go through the Manic Wonderland. Now, Beau's apartment is his safe space, and after missing a flight to go see his mother, he calls her and she begins to lay a guilt trip on him. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, somebody stole my keys, somebody stole my bag, I can't leave my apartment unlocked, somebody will come in here. And she's like, okay, whatever, just throws the guilt trip on him. And then she hangs up, and then when he goes to call her tomorrow, because he's like, all right, I'm just gonna do it, I'm gonna get on a plane, I'm gonna go see her, he finds out that she's dead.
Yeah, some random UPS guy answers her phone because he was delivering a package and finds out his mother's dead.
Yes, this causes his anxieties to go through the roof, as it would anybody that is suffering with mental illness. He goes to take some pills, realizes he doesn't have any water. Not even in his apartment, not in his refrigerator. His no water coming out of his sink. So he goes and rushes across the street to get some water.
Yeah, because of course keys were stolen out of his door. So now he doesn't have the key to his apartment or to the front door of the building. So he like props open the door with a phone book, and then he goes across the street. And then as he's in the store trying to pay, I mean, like his debit card and his credit card are declined. And then he's trying to pay with cash and he kind of doesn't have enough. And then
he witnesses all of the madness and craziness that's outside of his apartment, rush inside his building and go up to his apartment. And it's literally his fears and phobias. You know, you have two guys that are constantly fighting each other.
Yeah.
You have a one woman that likes to cook. It's just like all these different
and there's
things.
People that are on drugs, and then there's the partiers that are, you know, playing the music and dancing, and then there's the people that are destroying the apartment.
He goes back to his apartment. There's a sign that says he has water in his apartment again, so he goes to take a bath, and he looks up, and then there's this guy that is with his arms and legs out against the sides of the walls, trying to hold himself up until he falls on them. There's a little roughhousing. Beau runs out into the street.
Naked.
He's struck by a car, and it's driven by Grace, who feels guilty and takes him back to her home, where he's there for a few days before he wakes up. It's there after he wakes up that he calls his mother's estate to speak to the lawyer, and he finds out that his mother can't rest until Beau comes home to settle everything. There's not going to be a wake, there's not going to be a funeral.
Yeah, it was like her stipulation in her will that she was not to be laid to rest unless Beau was there. It's another bit of her control.
Now, at this point, I'm still kind of into the film. It's still pretty decent at this point. And we start to go a little bit into the Twilight Zone, where I was thinking while we were watching this, I was like, oh, you know what? If this movie wasn't 3 hours and it was like 24 minutes, it would have been a great Twilight Zone, because we meet the characters of Grace and her husband, Roger. Now, they have lost their own son to fighting overseas in the army. And essentially what Roger's doing, he's a doctor, and to kind of cope with the loss and help Grace grieve, they've brought Beau in along with another person, where it's like, hey, here's a replacement son. Let's kind of take care of him. And he goes about medicating Grace and their daughter as a way of like not dealing with today's problem. Again, like we talked about in the beginning of the film, it's like, all right, here's some medication, chew on it like it's candy.
Only he's a surgeon, so he's, I mean, obviously not supposed to be handing out these meds to people all willy-nilly, especially not his family. But, you know, again, these things happen.
Beau manages to escape from Roger and Grace, where he finds a traveling theater group known as the Children of the Forest. And he starts to walk along with them. And this is kind of like where I feel like we're going through another phase of the Manic Wonderland, because now all these people start to show up in the woods, and there's this theater built that he gets to sit down, and he watches a performance take place.
That's kind of like his own life.
Only it's not his life, it's the life that he would have led if he wasn't under his mom's control.
Yes.
So he gets to see himself grow up, get married, have kids, not die because he ejaculated and had a heart murmur. And tragedy does strike him there as well in this tale, where he's separated from his family and they're eventually reunited at the end of the play, which is great.
Only to have it kind of shot down again, because he says that he never did have sex with their mother, and then they question, well, how can you be our father?
Yes, so Beau, after seeing the story, is now starting to return to his own reality, where as he's watching the play of his life, he has a gift that he bought for his mother that he wanted to give to her, and he's been traveling with. He gives it away, and when he does that, lo and behold, his father turns up. Now, as he is trying to make sense of everything that's going on, Roger and Grace have sent in essentially a hitman that they're taking care of, a mentally wounded soldier, and he is running through the woods, shooting a machine gun. I think there was a couple explosions at some point where there's possibly grenades being thrown around.
Yeah.
So now you have Beau that has to flee and run off again, so he leaves this chapter of his life behind, or this story of his life behind, and eventually finds his way back to his mother's home.
He's missed the funeral, but he has rediscovered his childhood love, Elaine. It's here where he learns that his mother is not only not dead, but she has lied to him about his father and about his heart condition. His mother reveals the details around his childhood and how all she ever wanted was for him to love her and never leave. That's just weird. Beau continues to put the pieces of the puzzle together and manages to escape, or so we think, and he finds himself in the middle of an arena, being judged by his peers and his mother for the sins of trying to become his own person. It's here that we see how Beau sees society judging him, crossed with the guilt and shame that his mother instilled in him for trying to grow up and not having her as the center of his world.
Yeah, so it's Again, brilliantly bad, as it's a very deep movie. It covers a lot of serious topics, and as we mentioned in the Jiffy Pop review, I don't see anybody else being able to pull off this role other than Joaquin Phoenix, because he did an amazing job.
Yeah.
The story, it was just too long to kind of explain all this. I think honestly that you could have probably easily made it a 2-hour movie and still had the same impact, and probably had it be more entertaining.
I think that some of the scenes were more drawn out than they needed to be. Had they been shorter, the movie could have been shorter. 2 hours, I think, would have been fine. Because I think at the 2-hour mark is kind of where I really started to get like antsy and like wanted it to end. It was right past that, 2-hour mark. Because up until that point, it was still entertaining, and I wanted to see what was gonna happen, like how it was gonna conclude. I just think that it all could have happened in 2 hours. I really do. And hey, I don't make movies. Maybe I'm wrong, but I watch a lot of movies, so I don't feel like I am.
Do you agree with what we think this film's about? Let us know by dropping it in the comments. Let's have a discussion about it like we did with Skinamarink. I want to hear your thoughts. She wants to hear your thoughts, so drop it in the comments. Maybe we're completely wrong. I'm not saying that either one of us know everything about film, and we'll never say that.
No.
So,
And I could be wrong, but it's not going to change my opinion.
So, share what you think about the movie if you've seen it, or if you're going to go and see it, I would say wait until it comes on TV.
Or definitely wait until you're not working the next day. I'm so glad that I had off the next day.
Now, don't forget, there's a couple things that you need to do.
You need to like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Yes, every video that you watch, you have a chance to win stuff. At 25, 50, 75, and 100 comments and likes. And then at 3,000, 2,000, and 5,000 subscribers.
3,000, 2,000?
At 3,000, 4,000, and 5,000 subscribers, you have a chance to win some cool stuff, like a box of Strawberries and Scream cereal signed by
Matthew Lillard, David Arquette, and Rose McGowan.
Anyway, until the next Jiffy Pop or Popcorn Confessional or Pop 5, see ya.
See ya.